Welcome back, my fellow agents. It is I, X7, your comic book crazed host of Zenorama, the podcast of heroes and monsters. Today we are going to be talking about Turok, Son of Stone, the classic and super fun uh, comic book that lasted from the 50s clear into the 80s, 30 years, while repeating a lot of very similar stories about two Native Americans trying to get out of another timeless valley. Sound familiar? Well, it should. But be that as it may, before we get too much further into this, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I love the comments. And, watch a couple minutes longer. I'd watch all of it because it's a lot of fun. We're actually going to get to see the entire story, but I'm not going to go too in depth into it simply because, I don't want to, you want to avoid copyright issues, right? Not that anyone cares about this. So, having said all that, let's roll. All right, we're recording now. So this is volume one of Dark Horse's excellent reproductions, although they're now out of print and command ridiculous prices. So if you've got them, hold on to them. I wish Dark Horse would put them out in some, what do you want to? What do you want to say? Soft cover. These are hardbacks. Penny, penny. Anyway, this is the first volume, which we'll see that I have a semi copy of that I had many years ago. And Turok, here's the back cover. We're not going to be talking about it too much. It starts in 1954 from Dell 4 color, number 596. Numbering among comic books was different back then. So there's that. Now, the story we're going to review is this one, which I bought. This is Turok number 72, which I got many years ago when it was released in 1971 and January of 1971. So I would have been headed toward being 6 years old, headed that way. And it left an impression. I love the covers for Gold Key and Whitman and Dell were always amazing. They're usually painted by Italian artists. This one was, it wasn't, no artist or writer is given. One of the websites I saw said it was Paul S. Newman who wrote a lot of the original ones, and the typically excellent art is by Alberto Giolitti, which once again they were farmed out to Italian artists. So you find the title right there, and the Deathless Honker, and there's a reason, and we'll get into it. However, this cover was so well liked that some Turok number 126, which was published in March 1981, some 10 years later, used almost the exact same cover. There's some slight differences, such as the arrow not being here, but other than that, and the wording is different. But it's this is a single story. These are two stories. This is the better book. But great cover is a great cover, and how many kids that read this at 5 would be reading this or almost 6 at 16? Not this comic book reader. This was March of 1981. So, having said that, I'm going to put these back in their bags with their boards in them, and eventually, I have yet to read the second one. Well, no, I did. I just had it because the covers are awesome. See, Whitman, and this is a Gold Key. So, having said all that, we'll get right back into it. Okay, so here's our first page, and there's a flesh eater, which is what they had. They called them honkers mostly, no matter what they were, flesh eaters or anything. It's running away, and these two just go ahead and kill it with their poison arrows, which can apparently penetrate dinosaur hide. But he's not even running at him. They just killed him. which I think is kind of mean. I did not like not acclaimed, the Valiant Revival Turok Dinosaur Hunter because I don't like dinosaurs getting killed for no reason. So but they're going to eat him because he probably tastes like chicken, doesn't he? And so the MacGuffin here is that one of their cave people friends tells them about the Deathless Honker. I don't know what he's eating there, but the spear, everything bounces off of him. So that's our hook. So they're leaving because of the Deathless Honker, and then they find a plant eater. So they notice Stegosaurus is a plant eater, and he's once again it's hard to tell and with the art whether he's got the spines, the plates are alternating or right beside it or parallel, but he's black. So there's a thing. Look, the arrow bounces off. Uh-oh. They can't do anything about it. But nothing. So they're still wandering around looking. They're looking for trouble. And they find it's tar. It looks like tar, but it won't rub off. And it's as hard as a rock. But apparently he can still move. So there's no explanation for this, really. But he can still move his hand. So it's like a coating rather than petrifying it. And there he is. Here's our first one. End of part 1. This did come from hotcomic.net. I didn't see that. Said you could download it. I did way back when, before I had either of these comic books. I like the reprints, where you can get a bunch of stories for a reasonable price. But I also miss things like this, letters pages. Not that Gold Key or Dell ever had a lot of letters pages, if at all. They had extra things. I cut this out completely because body decorations. It was kind of boring. But they had a club news. You could become a Gold Key club member. I don't know anyone that ever did that, but I probably would have been interested in. Now I would have. Not for most of it. They had stuff. I'd like to have seen wacky races, but other than that, Turok, Star Trek maybe, but they don't even have Turok listed here. So what would be the point? Oh, for the November, you can send in jokes. It's just kind of fun. I don't know what else you could get. So, but I never did any of that. Oh, look, and now they have a stamp and coin collector's corner. I never paid any attention to these. It wasn't a comic book. Didn't read these jokes. So you can read them if you want, but I'm not going to pause that long. But now they're in the battle to the death with this odd theropod who's got 3 fingers but is shaped like a Tyrannosaurus. Now, you can see where they've stolen, they've swiped things occasionally, especially in the first ones. When we get around to reviewing some of those early Turok stories, you can definitely see Zallinger in there and Knight and all kinds of current paleo artists. But yeah, they're afraid of him because they can't kill him. But they can blind him because apparently his eyeballs didn't get sealed shut. And he's smart and a little obsessive because why would you want these little I don't remember where they're supposed to be. They're not Mayans, but they went in through the Carlsbad Caverns and came out into the Lost Valley, which was Lost Valley after Lost Valley after Lost Valley. So obviously another dimension. But, they try to bury him, which is smart thinking. Unfortunately, much like a zombie, they think he's dead, but he's not. Off he goes. The dinosaur doesn't even fight another one, really, I don't think. But then they find this a pool, obviously a mineral spring of some kind, and it smells terrible. So it's got mineral, definitely, probably sulfur for sure, but who knows what. And Andar, much like he got his hand covered, sticks his hand right into hot water, and look, it melts off. So now they can figure it out. Why they didn't aim for the dinosaur's mouth or eyes because they're excellent marksmen is beyond me. I mean, it would have made the story a lot shorter. Andar is now in the original stories they were brothers. I don't know if that was carried on throughout the entire run because continuity was not always a strong suit. Although several times they did refer back to other stories, especially in the very beginning. So they've got bags with they're obviously made out of lizard skin. So I didn't care for the art as a kid much because it wasn't dynamic like the event, especially Marvel stuff. But even DC was more dynamic than this. And the dinosaur, as you can see, changes. It doesn't even stay this looking the same from panel to panel. I mean, his hands change, his arms change, his head changes. The people look, they stay on properly done. But so now they've got okay, the one spot. Except that they could aim to it. They shot the other one. They shot dinosaurs in the mouths all the time. But they get the one spot, and now he's dead. And now they're going to cover up the black pool so it can't happen again. And that's it. So, really, I mean, now you can have your future as a pharmacist or a dental hygienist. Not that, women always were dental hygienists. This was written in 1970. So, of course, the book was published in January of 1971. I don't know if that's the publishing date, but obviously everything was written in the 70s. I do really like Turok a lot more. There was a Turok movie out a while ago, and I'm going to have to see if I can find that trailer because that might be fun to put on here. I remember enjoying it more than I thought I would because I figured it would go into the sort of Image Comics just over the top violence, but it wasn't too bad. So Doodles, I don't know why I never sent anything in. I mean, in 1971, I wouldn't have thought about it too much, but a couple years later, I could have. And there's the back page. Did I show you the back? I did not, but which one? That's not the back page I have. There's the back page, the very back of the comic book. Why they would be offering this thing to, boys. I can understand the Red Ryder BB gun with a compass in the handle and this thing that tells time. That's a daisy, but close enough. But that's that. So there's the actual cover. You can read more free comics on Read Comics Online. Thought I edited that out, but apparently I did not. And there's the inside of the front cover, which is something I wouldn't have cared too much about. I think we all had these though. I had I had a Ricochet Racer, and then we had the Smash Up Derby ones that would, when they landed, the windows and tires would fly off and doors. So here's my next. This was my next. I have two of these now. My original one and the second one, which my original one's actually in better shape. That is my original right there, and that had the first 5 issues, I believe, plus some extra stuff, and we'll review that too. All right, my fellow agents, that is our assessment of the original. My first ever Turok comic book, which I read sporadically and always would read them because they had dinosaurs. But I have more now in my collection than I ever did because the comic books are actually cheaper than buying the darn collections. But be that as it may, until our next assignment, which is tomorrow, and that's Green Hornet Day, the ultimate episode of 3 episodes of the Green Hornet. This is X7 signing off and phasing out.
I am Turok.
Where are we?
It must be the underworld.
We have never seen others like us in the Lost Land.
We need your help.